All right. I've gone on long enough. I'm going to turn it over to John, who's going to lead
Without further ado, for the
Spindle.
third time.
Yes. Zen and the art of spindle turning. I'm John Bob. I'm going to be quiet for a minute. John can introduce himself. We're recording, I think.
Okay, so if I can have first slide. Well, I had to work my latest carving in somehow. There's no turning on it, so this is how I did it. So yeah, today we're talking about spindles, and oh, that's right, I'm supposed to be doing this one. Okay, over here.
Behind you, but that works.
So spindles, you can do big spindles. That guy was me like 40 years ago or 30 years ago. Those were redwood gate posts, and you see all this glue here. I took them to San Lorenzo and had them sawed in half and routed a groove up each side and glued that together so the guy could run conduit up the middle to put lampposts on them. This is from a stair job that I did early on. And so they were hand carved based on a post that was, I mean, these are full 6x6 by 10 foot. And the one that was in the old part of the house was like 3 by 3, maybe 3.5 by 3.5. And she wanted to copy that. So I had to go and make drawings and patterns and stuff and recreate it in the larger size. And they came out pretty cool, I think. This is the street cred part. Why are you guys listening to me? These are, looks like it's probably an 8-foot column. These were cedar logs that I was called about, and I went down to San Lorenzo Lumber and looked at them, and they were 20-inch diameter, I think. And I said, I think that's too heavy for my lathe, you know? And so they called me back 2 weeks later and said, we called everybody in Northern California, nobody can do it. Can you do something? And what I figured out was the shaft is only a 12-inch diameter, and then the capital and the base at the top and bottom are much larger diameter. So I chainsawed off the ends to make the caps and bases out, and then I chainsawed the shaft down to about 12 inches and then turned it around. That's when I learned about ripping chains. Because I started with my regular chain, and I'm going, I mean, it was just merciless. And I'm not going to make any money. And so I went to the hardware store and I said, what can I do? And then they said, you need a ripping chain. So I put a ripping chain on, which is sharpened at about 10 degrees instead of 30 degrees. All the difference in the world. And I was like, yay. So that's in process, obviously. There's some finished ones without the capitals and the bases glued on. Put a tenon, so to speak, at the top and the bottom, and a recess in the capital and base to glue them together. Moving down in size, porch posts in process. And this is one of my steady rests that I made, inline skate wheels. And I have another kind of steady rest that I'll show you in a bit. A hollow column with the capital line and base on it and stuff. And so sometimes you start with a bunch of square blocks, and then you end up with a bunch of round blocks. The largest run I ever did was 350 3-foot 6x6 that are on the Widow's Walk on a old building across from the Dream Inn in Santa Cruz.
Well, how long would it take you to do one of these?
The first one would take like
Oh, yeah.
50 minutes.
Second one.
Second one would take like 40 minutes.
You got a few hours.
Third one would take like 30 minutes. And you'd probably average 25 for the rest of it.
What method do you use to copy the
I will demonstrate that later. Hang on. You can make furniture legs and stuff. That was a cool little stool. They sent me a picture and said, recreate this. So I did. You can make lamp faces. This is black acacia. And this one's redwood burl and live oak. No, not live oak, tan oak. Candlesticks. This is a baluster, a stair baluster job that I just did a few months ago. And these are interesting. You've heard of Bugatti cars? The guy who started it, his dad did art furniture. And the guy came to me that's rebuilding one of his chairs. And like these big spindles here are about that long. Okay? And then these were other components that I had to recreate. This is some of the original over here on this side. And what's really fun is I went to an art museum in Des Moines early in the summer, and they had not a chair like this, but it was a Bugatti chair, and that was really fun to see it. And you can make goblets. Not this one, but the first one like this I did was after I did a skew demonstration, and then the next thing was do something with a skew. So I made one just like that, all with a skew, little 1/4-inch skew that I made. Okay, so spindle turning. How do you make that stuff? These are your basic tools. Okay, so you have a roughing gouge. This is a tool that a lot of people aren't very familiar with. It's called a beading and parting tool. And it's a 3/8-inch square piece of steel. Spindle gouge, a parting tool, and a skew. Okay. As far as sharpening them, these are your basic angles, or at least the angles that I use. And I think they're pretty much the same as what like Richard Graffin recommends. People use all kinds of different things for a skew. Some people use straight across. Some people use curved. I use a slight curve, which I picked up from Richard Graffin years and years ago. It's a little more forgiving. You don't have to live with those. That's a place to start and find what works for you. There's a guy that's all over the Instagram, English. I can't think of his name right now. But his skew, he uses a beading and parting tool. He just uses this sharpened to a sharper angle, and with this shoulder rounded off. Richard Finley, yeah. He's really, really good with it. Really, really good. So pretty much you start with roughing, and everybody thinks of a roughing gouge, which I'll get to. But in actual point of fact, whoa. That's like descending into a cave. Skew flat on the tool rest. The edge pretty much parallel to the axis of the leg. And you can rough with that. If you're doing something really big, voice post or something, you probably wouldn't want to use this. You're up with the vegan and partying. You can rub. Little Spindle gap. So, there are different sizes of Spindle gouges. So that one I was just using if you have there. I also have a 9/16 that they didn't used to have. They came out with these, I don't know, 15 years ago. I think this is my third one. I use tools up a lot. It's a little larger, removes material faster than the Hawthorns that are used for decades. This is a 3/8, which I use a lot on smaller stuff. And I do even have a 1/4 inch that I almost never ever use occasionally. And roughing gouges. There's 3/4 that probably most of you that have one have. I also have an 1.25 inch that's one of my students gave me a number of years ago. And probably one of my two most used tools in the shop is 2-inch roughing gouge.
You're putting your own,
What?
you're putting your own handles.
Oh, that's something, I meant to say that, that's something else we can make with spindle turning use. Your own handle, that one, this one's mine, this one's mine, this one's mine, this walnut one. And my shooting handle. And when I wear out a tool, like this is the third roughly out of this solid that I'm on, I can just take the tool out and put a new one in. Spindle gouge, lay that on the tool rest, and when you're going in the square, think of if you put it as if you were putting the bevel on the wood when it was round, about that angle. And if you have it too high, then it won't cut. And you just roll it and it starts to cut. A lot of people will show you to do it like this, which is good technique in that this hand is blocking the shavings and not going down your shirt. But they tend to, most people that I see doing that, they like this, and then come back and do another one. Whereas that's probably good, and I think that saves a lot of time. So. And that's used pretty much straight on, perpendicular to the axis. You can use it if you roll it over and do a back cut. You can put a pretty nice surface on your wood that way. Yeah. What?
What speed?
2132. Give or take. I know it's okay because the lade's not jumping already. You can go faster if you want. A good a good thought, that's not so important in bowl turning because you don't move along the tool rest so much, is to keep your tool rest filed so it's smooth, there's no nicks in it. And you can just take out like a bastard file and just do that and smooth it off. And when there aren't those nicks and things in there that you can get, especially when you're using the skew, it makes your motion more easy. And you don't.
Do you ever cut your blanks octagonal? That you take the corners off from the table saw?
Only if I'm doing like an octagonal post and then adding some turning to it, like a mule post or something. No, I mean, manuals that I saw when I started said, especially, that's especially difficult if you're doing a post that has a square base and maybe a square pommel at the top for the rail to die into, then you can't cut that post octagonally. So that was one hint that I saw when I first started and quickly figured that it didn't work. What was the other one I was going to say? Oh, that once you find the center, take the piece and take your drive spur and put it on top and center it and hammer it into it, the drive spur into the wood, and then put it on the lathe and stuff. If you're doing production turning, you don't have time to do that. So, put a piece on and just bring it up. I'm going to put this back in the same indentations.
Ha! Did it.
We knew you could do it.
Takes years of practice. So, very often, when you're making a piece, you're going to have squares left at the top and or the bottom, or at the bottom and or the top. And how do you do that? There's basically, there's a couple different ways. So, using the skew, which is great for making V-cuts, you can make a V-cut. And then we're doing that. I've got this one pre-marked. Can you see that? You see the double lines that are on there?
Yeah.
Okay. So this first line is going to be the beginning of the cut in, and the second line is going to be where the turning starts. So if that were on here, you would line up the bellow of the tool with the direction that you want the cut to go. We're basically cutting just at the point, the large one. And there you go. So in that situation, it's square, and you cut the V into it, and then bring the round up to it, and then just cut your shoulder clean. The way that I did it most of the time was so what you have to watch out for is you don't want a whole bunch of tear out here at where the square starts. If you come into it this way, you're going to get that. It's going to be a mess. So if you're doing this, you just always make sure that you're roughing this way. In this case, I'm using this part of it, so the bevel is going this way. And I usually get it close, and then if you roll this tool over on its side, and push use the corner here. You can tighten that up and get it real close. And then come back with your spool. And clean it up. What is interesting is that you can do the same thing with a spindle valve. If you don't have a skew, or if you're not feeling on real friendly terms with it, then you'll get pretty much the same kind of. I went a little deep here, but that's okay. So when we started talking about doing this demonstration, Kevin asked me about could I do the use of the skew, and I said, well, it won't take all that long. So we turned it into doing Spindle 101. So other things the skew is good for, what it really excels at is what we call planing. And typically that's done with I don't like this tool, but to leave a smooth surface. So if you put the bevel on the tool, and you're aiming a little bit, I'm going to go this way. Feel on that, and just back it on like this. Or start to turn. Move along like that. And it gives you a really smooth surface. Now this stuff, this fur, doesn't cut wonderfully cleanly, but you can tell the difference, but it's a little, I got almost as good a surface off of the roughing gouge. When I was doing porch posts and stuff, and if you had, I don't know, that picture's on, you had a long, smooth curve, or even a straight part, I do that with the roughing gouge and not put a skew on a 6x6. If you want to plane the other direction, just come up here again, double line. Go the other way. That gave a good surface. I think, and this is another point, basically you're shaving the wood. If you've used a hand plane or you've done any carving, and the same as working on the outside of a bowl, you want to be cutting downhill on the grain. And the difference between this surface, come here, Sue. Sue.
Talking to you.
What do you want? I thought you were looking way past me. What do we do? Ooh, I get to go.
Feel here. Feel here. You feel the difference in the
Oh,
roughness?
yeah. Oh, my goodness.
And for $5.
This is silky. I'll just stay here.
You can have it.
And that's the difference between cutting uphill and downhill. This was the wrong way to cut on this piece of wood, and this was the right way.
We went and petted chinchillas the other day. Like that.
Hey, John.
Really silky.
Yeah.
When you were making that last cut there, how much pressure were you putting down on the tools?
A little bit, but not a lot. Any cutting that you do, you don't want to be pushing into the wood. You want to let the wood come to the edge and be cut, if that makes sense. You can actually do a little less pressure if you use long point down. I was doing those with short point down, which is the way it's usually done. But you can. Do it with long point down, either direction. Whichever direction you're cutting, you want to keep your cutting at middle or below middle, not, if I were doing it this way, not in the upper half. You can do that, you can get away with it, but there's also the chance that the wood's going to grab it and pull that point into the wood with unhappy results.
I have a question.
Yes.
You're talking about going downhill on the grade.
Yeah.
Did you test it first before you put it on your lathe? Because you're.
Not before I put it on the lathe, but I can tell as I'm cutting, what it's doing. In most cases, like if you're doing a vase shape like this or like this, where you're cutting towards the center, you're going to be going downhill. The difference here is where I'm going very parallel to it, so there's not much chance to get downhill on the grain.
I would have it downhill on one side, uphill 1 microsecond later.
John, would you be comfortable demonstrating what happens when you get too close to the tip?
No,
And creating a spiral catch for everybody to see?
I can try, and I'm more likely to do that when I'm showing beading, which is the next thing. What I have found in my life is that I'm a master at getting catches, except when I'm trying to.
Okay.
Okay, medium. This is what everybody hates with the skew. Names for this. And anything that goes wrong today, I just blame it on the fact that my elbow's up here. This lathe is not at the right height for me. Roy asked me if I wanted him to get the blocks made so we could raise the lathe and everything. I thought it might be okay, but might as well use this thing as okay. So one thing I found is the steward is not real happy with removing lots of wood. So take corners off and stuff. This is my bad side. Does that show up?
Like one, though.
There's a bead there. So when you're doing the defect, usually bring the tip in high using the long point down, come out, and arc down into the wood, like that, and then the same thing from the side, like that, and then from the other side. So you're kind of rolling it over and bring the handle around. If you don't bring the handle around, you'll find that the beads are flat. See how it's coming with my body and coming around? And I'm raising the handle a little bit with the wind. Okay. Going the other way. Little neat. Interesting point of fact. If you think back to the tall hollow column that was sitting on my table saw, about 5 feet tall, and right below the capital, there's a bead that sticks out from the surface. If a bead's above the surface, it's actually called an astragal. If you're familiar with like French doors, where they close and there's a molding that's covering the gap, you notice it's like two flats and a raised bead, and that's called an astragal molding. That's where you see it most of the time. Interesting to note that all those books that recommend that you use the skew for beading, gouge, same motion, bringing the handle around and raising it. Actually, I'll demonstrate that. If you don't bring the handle around, see how flat it is there? That's because the handle's not coming around, which brings the point around. Okay? Which makes perfect sense. If you want to make a round bead, you got to bring the tip around. Okay. Also, as you're cutting down into the wood, cutting lower, then you have to raise the handle in so that it will cut down towards the, or down deeper. And then you get a round bead, as opposed to, does that show up there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you get a round bead as opposed to the one next to it that's so flat. Another thing that, if you're turning, well, if you want to or need to clean up the end of your piece, you skew it very well. What I always do, take the corner off, barely see it. And that gives you a place to put your bevel. And you can go around. So that beveled end gives you a place to put the tip of your bevel on it. As soon as you do that, then your tool is supported. And then you can bring it around and line the bevel up with your straight end cut or whatever it is that you want to do and go on in. If you happen to be turning at, as the Mexicans say, al punto del aire, so you don't have the tail sock, you just have your piece held in the chuck, and you need to clean up that end. Just arc your end cleaning cut in, but don't try to make your point go through the center. Have the edge up here go through the center, and then it'll cut cleanly. You don't have to hit it exactly with the point. Let's see, oh. So the parting tool, most often used for setting depth. Okay. So you're turning this and you want to make it whatever size you want it. You can set it with the parting tool. Parting tool. Like that. An interesting point is like this fir in here, with red oak, these fibrous, splintery woods. If you put in straight in like I did, let's see what it did here. You probably can't see, but there's tear out in there. A way to deal with that. When you look down the depth, you just slide the piece across, straight across. You basically use it like a skew.
They're no longer one-handed.
Mark, we have who you're talking to. I thought he was ignoring you. He's the other starting of this club.
So that will clean your grain up in a situation like that. You can cut. You can do the planing for this. You can use a roughing gouge. You can do it with your spindle gouge. I think you'll get a better line off the bigger roughing gouge or off a skew than you will with spindle gouge. Although you can also use 80 grit sandpaper and clean things up really nicely. I mean, when you're doing, production stuff, whatever works and as fast as beating and parting, I do that. You can. It's called a beating and parting. You can roll. You can roll a bead with a parting tool. That's the term, even with parting. It says you can part with it, and you can, but it's gonna make a really wide groove and stuff.
Did you hold the tip of that tool to the camera so that
I'm sorry. What?
you hold the tip of that tip to the camera so we can get a better look at the tip?
Okay.
Yeah.
There.
Well, okay, I'll look at it afterwards.
There. Okay. It's a fairly short bevel. Short. It's less acute than a skew. Okay. It works really well for setting depth.
Can you mention the Dan compared to the parting tool?
I have no idea I mean, I know they exist, and I don't know what the difference is. I don't know
It has an
what.
angle on one end and straight on the other.
Oh, that.
And you use it upside down.
Just wondering.
I don't know. I have no experience with that. Sorry. But I bet I could do it one-handed. Let's see, and the only other thing, if you need to make small grooves or set a small diameter, then the parting tool, same thing, double on the wood, this is over again. If you need to make a deep cut, if you want it to, you can go a lot deeper without smoke or fire. Also, with both the medium parting and the parting tool, if you do have wood like this that tears out fairly easily, if you kind of rock it so that you're cutting on an angle, you'll actually get a smoother cut, I have found. And then you can finish up with that sliding cut at the bottom or something to even off the little hill that you'll get in the middle because you're rocking. In doing spindles, if you're doing a long, slender one, you may need a steady rest. You saw the one with the 3 wheels on it. That's for doing big stuff. This is one that I use a lot. I have an extra banjo for my lathe, and it just sits on there like that, okay? This is lined with leather. I usually put a little beeswax on it now and then. I make blocks with different size holes in them, and then just cut a hole in half. I do a drill press and then line it with a strip of leather. And that works real well. And another thing, when you're cutting on something thin, this won't do it, but if it gets thin enough, especially if you've got a design where it gets narrow in the middle and you start to get some vibration or rip, you can put the base of your hand on the tool lift, reach your fingers over, and apply some pressure on the back side against the pressure of the tool. And then go ahead and cut. If you're pressing hard enough that it gets hot and burns, you're pressing too hard. Warm is good, hot is not.
How long before you wear off the tough skin?
How long before what?
Wear off the skin.
I have never worn my skin off. Yeah.
You have fingerprints?
No, and you should see the stuff I've gotten away. Yes, I still have fingerprints. But I'm not using my fingertips. I'm using, yeah, here.
Or do you put a bit of beeswax on it?
You could. You
It's
could.
better after all.
I hit with leather.
Have a hot plate with a little bowl of beeswax sitting on it and just dip it in every now and then. Good idea.
Sun-lined glove.
Rocket scientist, I tell you.
They like 220 or what?
It depends on what what I'm working on. Something fine and relatively small, stuff like this, probably started at 220. But oddly, I don't usually sand past 220. About the only time I do that is when I'm doing a film finish, and then I use finer grits on the coats of finish. Coat. Okay, typically we'll do coat with a gouge. Or you want to put a coat between those two lines. Start on one side, put in, and then cutting downhill. Okay. Go back to the other side. Both sides. This is the way that's still mud. So basically that, like that. And I don't know that it will work all that well with fern, but with against it would. Yeah. You can cut it in. And come up the other side like this. It's actually a fairly decent cut. Okay. That works especially well on small, tight coves where it's hard to get into. I just did a job with about 40 little half-inch wide coves where the sides were almost straight going in. Interesting point on that. Using the same kind of trick as when I beveled off the end to give myself a push. I took the point of the bevel and did it into the cut. If you wanted to make this cut go in more steeply and come back out more steeply, put just the tip inside the edge. Then you can get a little bit of that. And push straight in. So we've got the flute about halfway open, 45 degree up. And notice almost everything I'm doing, I'm keeping it pulled against my body because I have so much more control and stability. When I started, the blue thing was to say, "Oh, you're dancing with the tool." Whatever, I dance better with the tool than I do with my wife. So when you start this cut, I actually roll it back and I start cutting on this side of the tip. This side of the tip, and then going this way. And then as I get in at the cut, and I roll over more, and going like that. If you're using a skew a lot and you need a shallow coat, you can do that.
with the steel. Basically, the steel is up on this edge. I'm going in with the edge. And basically coming down onto the tip at the thing. You can't get in there like that and still have the edge. But you can't cut across the steel. Other questions? Clean that?
You were gonna talk a little bit about reproduction.
That's the next thing. I'm basically trying to get all the cuts and uses and everything, you know. Okay, so. Well, that's just funky. Took all that fuzz off of there. Okay, so I'm going to reproduce this. I have pre-marked the shoulders on this. Let's see, which way does this one go? Okay, so I've marked the ends, and I've used my special tool, which is an old center punch that I just ground a vicious point on. And once you've marked it, ways to mark the center, there are myriad ways. Large stuff I usually use a combination square, set it for half the width, and mark all four sides. It's very hard to set it and get it exactly so it's hitting its center, and especially like if you've done the blanks on a table saw or something, they may not be completely accurate. So if you draw from all four sides, you're going to get a little square in the middle, and then that's a little easy. I usually come with my point like this and get the point right on the center, and then you dip up into it. If you try and go straight down into it and everything, you can, the grain can push it off center a little more easily. So both ends. So that's one way. Another way is with an angle head on your square. Again, do all four corners, and you'll still get a little square in there. Sometimes when I was doing a large run, I would use these, which is basically a square that's the same size or slightly larger than the piece that I'm working on, pieces that I'm working on, and then a screw up through the very center. Let's see if this one's big enough. Yes. So it's too big, right? But if you just pivot it until the corners hit on all four sides and keep it pretty vertical, then you just push down on the screw and it will mark it. So if you've got to do 350 6x6s, it saves you a lot of time. You can buy little plastic things at craft supplies or whatever that basically do what this does. But this has a lot of other uses, so a lot more useful. So if I don't think the braid, a small piece, but this is a little bit big, but I could probably do it. Eyeball the center, and then hold it very rigid, and put your fingernail against it, and draw a line and rotate it, and do all four sides. And you can get pretty darn accurate with that.
Oh,
And
show your finger that's the guide part.
Yeah, the fingernail part.
yeah, it's like
Got it.
Do you have one that hasn't been marked or set?
I do not, I pre-marked everything that I brought. So again, it's just. That simple. I remember I was doing a spindle demonstration of some kind. And I was doing this. I think I made a remark like, and I try and get it on the center mark so it'll be accurate and everything. Somebody raised their hand and said, well, what if you don't get it on the center mark exactly? And what do you do? I said, well, I take my tool and go like that. And it amazed me. A lot of people went, oh, wow. I didn't do that. Okay, so first process in repeating this is to get it roughed down to round between the squares and creating the shoulders. So
Now, are you cutting at the bottom of the tool of the tool of the?
When I'm doing this,
Yeah, you're cutting around the bottom
right there.
Yes.
If I'm doing back cut, it's not. I bring the angle along like that. And it's kind of like putting backwards with a skew. You can do my surface. Do it. Yeah. Let me say that this is not a safe setup. No, I'm reaching over the spinning thing. When I do this, I have a table with all my spindle tools on here, but I think that the ones that I need for the bigger parts of the building, make a sound really. But I'm just putting it on. When I'm doing that, I'm just feeling whether it's smooth and I've got all the flats on. Okay. Yeah, as you can see, there's a line out here, and this is what you don't want. This tear out, but that's okay, it's gonna go away. And I'm going to do this detail. You can see this detail there. So it kind of goes in and then comes around. Okay, that's called a lamb's tongue. And I thought I'd put that on for a little variation. I will do that at the end rather than right now. Okay, so now, the very important part of the repetition process is a story stick. If you don't know what a story stick is, it's basically a stick with lines at specific measurement spots on it. Cabinet makers use it a lot. They'll put a big long stick up against the wall of the kitchen and mark off where they want cabinets to end and so on and so forth. You get a lot of information on a stick. So what I'm going to do is, you see I've got lines on here. This line indicates a break in the pattern because this is not as long as the pattern, which is key because otherwise you can't get it in, especially when it's spinning. And if I'm doing multiples, more than one or two, then I take a knife and go in on the edge and just press it in and then rock it from side to side, and that makes a little notch, and my pencil just goes in that little notch. If what you need is you need lines where the points on the pattern are, and you know, if you're doing a goblet, if you're doing a candlestick, if you're doing a porch post, what the process is basically the same. So if your stick does not need to be as long as the whole pattern. Like on this one, I've got lines for this end, and I've got lines for this end. Okay. Sometimes I'll have 3 or 4 foot piece to turn, but my story stick might only be 6 inches or a foot long because the details are only at the 2 ends. And I always throw an arrow on, and that means put that in towards the headstock, lest you end up all screwed up. So basically, that's that one more. Slide it into this one. Right. Here's my eraser. I don't know why, I want someone giving me this. And that is marked out. So the first thing that I would do here is and I always have a sample, either the original that I was given or the first one that I turned or whatever, held in front of me so I can see it. And then you need to be able to set reasonably accurate depths. I say reasonably accurate. I will tell you, when I first started doing this, there was a lady who was trying to do sort of a woodworking newsletter in the Bay Area. She found out what I did. She said, "Can I interview you?" And I'm, yeah. And we're talking, and she said, "What kind of tolerances do you work to?" And I'm like,
close enough to fool the human eye? She's like, no, what kind of tolerances do you work? How many thousands? Close enough to fool the human eye. So like I say, reasonably close. So let me just make sure I got these in the right order. Yeah. So that's not me. Yeah. This is, so what am I saving back? Okay. So. That. This thing. Okay, I'm worried about what I just did, setting in depth. There is that way with calipers. If I was doing like a dowel 10 to put into a hole, I would probably bring it down with calipers and check it with these. Set these at the right diameter, and then do the same thing to where they slip on. Because typically these things will spring apart a little bit. You notice when I was doing this, it would kind of catch and go on, but it kind of catch a little bit. And that's because they're spreading apart, and you don't get a really, really accurate thing that way. It's close enough to fool the human eye, so it's okay. But okay, so now you're in this position where you've got to roll this bead here. If you take a gouge and try and do that, I always worry about catching the wing up against the shoulder of the pommel. Square part is called the pommel. Especially if instead of a rounded shoulder like this, it goes straight in. It seems real dangerous. So skew comes in really handy.
Yeah.
You're welcome. I do that to try and make you feel good. When you make a mistake, no extra charge. Right there. However, now if I want to roll the other side, do I want to stick this skew in there like that? No, I'm going to hit the shoulder. See, this is where being able to roll a bead with the gouge. Something very handy. Okay. You notice that this bead is offset with a sharper corner on this side than on this side, which I think is a nice design feature at times.
Okay, you notice when I set the depth, the line for the width of my fillet, the flat part went away. So that's just something that I eyeball.
John, could you put your visor down? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Now there's a fillet here. I'll say that. Okay, now the lamb's done. So I go in at this line down here, trying to come parallel, and then round off in that groove that I just made. Another way of setting depths, as opposed to using calipers, is, what's his name?
Richard Finley?
Richard Finley. He has a bar up here behind his lathe with mechanical fingers on it that he can slide along and lock in place, and they've got a flipper on them. And he sets it so that, puts a pattern up here and sets it so that the finger will drop through when it gets to the right diameter. I saw that system when I first started, and I tried to do it like with just a bar and with masking tape and electrical wire and stuff, and they were too light. All they did was bounce around and stuff. And so I gave up on that, and I think Finley has those manufactured now, and you can buy them from him. If I were setting up to do production work and stuff, I would do that, okay, as opposed to calipers.
Have you ever used a copy lathe?
What?
A copy lathe?
I had a copy lathe, yes. Turned thousands of balusters on it. I hated doing it. It just was boring as heck as compared to this. But it made money more faster. which I considered a salient and important point.
John, we're about an hour and a half now.
Okay, I am moments away from finishing this.
So did you just eyeball the tapering that you did?
Yeah, but it's not done yet.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope. Okay, you notice that I started with the steel, but it started right here, not at the end.
Yeah. Input shade problem. The TV.
Anyways, when I started to figure this off, yeah, I started like about here, as opposed to at the end. It's hard to come in from the end. So you're better off coming back and pulling up that way, going towards the drop line. Sorry, Sarah. And then I would start sampling. The way. This is some 150. It's just. I'm not going to try and sand this really well. Just show you the thought procedure. So just roll the paper up to the end. Shoulder, it's not scary. Well, it can be. Yeah.
Before you take it off, for the camera, where you put the original in front.
Well, I was going to hold them up, but sure, we'll do it your
On
way.
the other side, on the other side.
That's all I got, folks.
Well, for the sake of time, let's all give John a big round of applause and thank him for doing this. And you can really show your appreciation by helping to clean up some shavings when we get done. And put some tips in the jar.